to make room in the afternoon to hear a little bit more of who Pastor Carla is. So you get a bit of a snapshot of who she is on the platform. I've had the absolute privilege of spending some time with her outside of a church setting. And honestly, there's absolute gold that flows from her. The way she parents, her family legacy, the way she does life in general outside of a church setting. And so we thought, why not make some room to ask Pastor Carla a few questions? And so we've called this a conversation with Pastor Carla. And I'm sure you'll lean in, again, because there's so much that I know you're going to glean from her as we look at life outside of ministry. So do you want to come take a seat, Pastor Carla? I've got Pastor Janine here to join us. Where do you want to sit? Do you want to sit in the middle? I'll sit on this side.
Where do you want to go? Thank you. Oops. Oh, is this the wobbly one?
Do you want me to sit? Pastor Carla, they're asking if we can swap over.
Sure thing.
There we go. Are you happy? Me and Pastor Janine are both quite short. We're like, Pastor Carla's fine. She's perfect.
It's like a regular chair for me.
Pastor Carla, what a privilege to be able to meet with you. And I feel very privileged to be sitting with two actually powerhouse ladies on this.
Thank you, Pastor.
So thank you. We're very privileged. You've told us a little bit in the last session about part of your legacy, part of your generation, and we would just love for you to share a little bit of your background, a little bit of your family history, and also maybe how that has helped you to make life decisions along the way, and also how it's impacted where you are today.
Okay, so I come from many generations of missionaries and pastors. I grew up hearing my grandparents, Rick and Betty Strombeck, were missionary pastors, traveled all around the world, planting churches and having Bible schools. And so I grew up hearing my grandmother preach and teach, and she's like my hero. So I remember she would come home from her trips, in the Amazon jungle or wherever she was, and I would be like, and she was so brave. People say, "You're so brave, Carla." I'm like, "You should meet my grandma."
Wow, yeah. Amazing.
My grandma did stuff that I wouldn't do. She crossed the Andes Mountains in a bus in 1976.
Wow.
By herself because she wanted to scout the ground before her husband came.
As you do.
Yeah. Through all these countries, back at the time, our jungles were full of, through the mountains and jungles, were full of terrorists. And she always had stories when she'd face a terrorist and she'd just, preach to them or whatever. Like, Grandma. And so I heard those stories growing up, and I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like my grandma. And so she was definitely the reason why that I wanted to get into ministry.
Beautiful.
Because she was the bravest woman that I knew.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. It's amazing. And you've told me before how many generations deep are pastors. I've taken a guess, but I want to hear it from you. How many generations deep
So
are pastors?
on my dad's side, my mom's side, they've been Christians longer, but we really get our deep faith from my dad's side that are the spirit-filled side of Christians. And I wrote a book, and when I'd written the book, we'd always said 13 generations of pastors and missionaries.
Isn't that amazing?
But I was with my sister, and we were like, let's actually go back and count the generations, because some of those old ones we weren't sure. And so we went back to look, and that 13th generation we'd always mentioned, her parents and her father and grandfather are both pastors. We're like, well, they're definitely, so it's 15.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's very amazing. So I have one question. You're a very self-assured, very confident woman. Has it always been this way?
No, I mean, we've been talking about this the past few days I came with Silvana, one of my campus pastors. And I mean, God's definitely done a work in me.
Wow.
But I always had a dad that believed in me, that always treated me equal to my brother.
Wow.
That always thought whatever I had to say was important, that didn't interrupt me, that valued my voice. And I didn't see it at the time. I just thought that's how life was. Till I left my house and just saw this disparity in so many other families and so many other spaces. But to have a dad, and now that many of us are parents, to have a dad that doesn't, those little things, like not interrupt you, or like when someone interrupts, like, hey, no, my daughter's speaking. Like just those little things that you don't really notice day to day, because then later on, I really notice when someone interrupts me. It's like, hold on. what's going on? Like, who do you think you are? Like, it gives you a
Yeah.
different posture.
Yes.
So I grew up in school. I was one of those girls that even through my teenage years, I kept raising my hands.
Nice.
I kept competing. Even when all the other girls got quiet, even now. And all these, I sit in so many other spaces, even these high up tables. And other women might just, well, let's not say anything. I still were like, you know what? And because I know that deep down, and it sounds so funny because I'm such an adult now. Like that translated into I have a God that has my back.
Nice,
And
yeah.
that I know that what my voice is valuable. And I know that if I'm sitting at this table, if I'm invited to this board meeting, it's because I need to not just sit and I'm gonna take up a space, but my voice needs to be heard. I'm representing a whole bunch of women and these men need to hear
Right.
that, what a woman's opinion sounds like, in a respectful way, but that's the whole reason why I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm not there
that's
not just to sit and be quiet.
Yeah.
And so there's so much to that.
Yeah.
But even if you grew up in a house where that didn't happen, I want you to know that is how God sees you, and your voice is valuable. And God wants, I have a whole other message on, but God gave you a voice. He gave you so many gifts, and he wants you to be a light. Like, it's not just men that are called to be salt and light. Women are called to be salt and light too, and so often we're the ones hiding under the basket. And so I just want to challenge you. If you are a Christian woman, Jesus calls you in that boardroom, in that university room, and whatever space you're in, to take up that space, because both salt and light, they're leaders, they're change agents. They don't sit there and listen. They say, you know what, it's wrong that we do this. We need to do things like this. We have the Holy Spirit inside of us. And so that needs to come out, and we need to hear the female side of that.
I love that.
I love that. And you touched on parenting the way your dad was with you. But I know I chat with Pastor Carla a lot about parenting and the way she raises her boys. You've got 3 boys, 1 girl.
3 boys, 1 girl.
And I would love for you, because I feel it's helpful for everybody in the room to hear your approach to parenting and how you and Sergio, so Pastor Carla's husband's name is Pastor Sergio, they pastor a big church. You guys are busy, but yet you've got children who love the Lord, who are committed to the house, all those good things. Could you share some of your tips or your approach to how you've raised your boys and your girls?
So growing up in church, I know a lot of people who grew up in church. I went to a Christian school as well. That was part of a different church. So I grew up around all these church kids, Christian kids, and so many of them have followed me from the faith. And a few years ago when I wrote my parenting book, which is not in English, sorry, I asked everyone a question because I kind of wanted to really get at the root. What is a good Christian parent? How do we, pass on our faith to the next generation? And the funny thing is, Pastor Racquel, I had an idea before I asked the question. And my idea was, because me and my siblings all love the Lord, none of us ever went to the world, I just figured, well, there's probably kind of one good secret to passing on your faith. But those who have rejected their parents' faith, it's probably for a plethora of reasons. There's probably a whole bunch of reasons why a person might get hurt along the way and decide to reject their parents' faith. But I wanted to kind of get at it and really somehow back up this hypothesis that I had. So I started asking this question to hundreds of people, starting with those that I knew, leading up to those I didn't know. And if I knew that you had grown up in church or grown up with Christian parents, whether you yourself were saved or not, I asked the same question: what was the major factor or the determining factor that led you to accept or reject your parents' faith? And I was super surprised by the answers, because it was the opposite of what I thought. I thought those who rejected the faith would be a bunch of answers. Those that rejected the faith, Pastor Racquel, and sorry, what's your name again, Pastor?
Janine.
Pastor Janine.
Pastor Janine, were 99% the same thing.
Wow.
Well, different wording. It was all almost, I rejected my parents' faith because my parents were hypocrites.
Wow.
They were one person in church and one person at home, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow, interesting.
As we know, the devil's not creative.
Yeah.
He's sowing those same lies to everybody. He doesn't even bother making up something different. He tells everybody the same thing. So let's disarm Satan. If I want my kids to love Jesus, if there's anywhere that my light has to shine, it's not here, it's at home.
Very good. So good. I love that. I love that.
So I'm super intentional at home for my kids to see that that's where my faith really shines. When God does a miracle in my life, I don't always talk about it from the stage, but I'd run to tell my kids, like, oh my gosh, kids, remember the other day we were praying and I asked for this? Look, here it is. God answered my prayer. They know when God answers. We pray together. I invite them into my prayer closet. We read our Bibles together. They always see me reading the Bible. They always find me praying. And I do it. I know Jesus says, lock yourself in a way and do it. I leave my door open because I want my kids to hear me and see me. I want them to know my mama's praying for me. My mama's a real Christian. I'm not perfect. I have issues. I ask forgiveness. So many of my friends, they're like, well, my parents did all these things and never said they were sorry. And I'm going to take away that argument. Kids, I am sorry when I just, do the wrong thing. And so really, really, really be super intentional about your light shining at home.
That's awesome. So wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, very wise.
So wise. I want to just ask one question on that. Is you've mentioned to me, and I think it's such a great approach, about how you were raised you're raising pastors' kids, but you've spoken about your approach to parenting that you've taken raising pastors' kids. Can you speak to that? Do you know what I'm getting at with that? Because you've got some great thoughts. I've heard them. So missionary kids versus pastors' kids.
When I grew up, and as you know, I'm 40, so in the 80s, early 90s, I thank God it's not like this anymore. But at the time, it was very well known for the worst kids in the church to be the pastor's kids, right? It's kind of like, that's how it was, probably not New Zealand, that's how it was where I grew up in America. It was just, PKs were just the worst. And, but I was being raised, even though we had a ministry family, not as a stuffed up PK who was asking for bottles of water, but as a missionary kid, where, oh gosh, the things we had to eat and the things we had to do. But it was just like, it's such a privilege to serve God. It was so much more than, God, even Jesus came to serve and not be served. And so I told my kids, it's like, you're not here so that people can bring you things. Yeah, that happens, but you should do that to other people. If you see someone left out, you go after them. If you see someone needs something, you do that. If you see trash on the floor, you pick it up. We're here to serve. And then there's the missionary kid motto. Any other MKs in here? MKs in the house? Missionary kids? Nobody? They all gone? I'm sorry.
I was going to be a missionary.
Okay.
I really wanted to be a missionary. And then I met Pastor Peter and Bev.
Can blame them.
Yeah.
So the missionary kid motto is, where you lead me, I will follow. What you feed me, I will swallow. Those are both difficult. So I went with my parents to ex-Soviet Union bloc. I ate all kinds of animals. I draw the line at live animals. But anything that was dead, I've had crickets. I've eaten ant eggs. I've eaten snake and turtle eggs. And yep. I also learned the art of pretending to eat and hiding in a napkin. I'm a ninja when it comes to that. But I always learned that it's a privilege to be able to serve God in all these countries. And so I've taught my kids, even though we live in this, we're mega church pastors and we have all these privileges. And I'm like, no, you're gonna come with me on some of the difficult trips where there is no air conditioning in the rooms, there's no elevator, there's no maybe electricity. Maybe there is no clean water, and we're gonna pray over that ridiculously looking food, and we're gonna eat it so that they don't think that, we're too good. Like, we're gonna serve Jesus. And yes, sometimes we're gonna be in beautiful first world countries where everything is nice and cushy and smells nice, and we get any drink we ask for. But we're gonna be just as thankful to when we have to eat. The other day I had to eat this soup for breakfast. That was like all the leftover parts of an animal that regular people don't eat. Because I was at one of our own agua vivas deep in the mountains of Peru in a city called Huancayo. I was helping to open some soup kitchens before the women's conference. And I went there and was taking, pots and things that our church was donating. I was just, posing for the picture. And then I go, please stay for breakfast. And I was like, the place reeked very strong of urine. And I was like, I wonder where they got the water for this soup. And of course, they gave me the biggest bowl of all the bowls, chucked to the brim, and it was cartilage and tongue and stomach and intestines and for breakfast. I'm like, I could do this for lunch, but breakfast, I was like, bleh. I was like, you know what? Lord, I am not gonna be that woman just to turn my nose up and make these women feel that they're less than me. So I was like, Jesus, I prayed for that soup like I have not prayed. It was a long prayer, and I was like, Jesus, help me not to get sick. I have to preach later. I was like, Lord, bless this soup. May it be a blessing to my body. And then I put all the hot sauce that I could handle, and I chugged that thing down. Yep.
Wow, you're a better lady than I am.
Maybe you couldn't have been a missionary then?
That's why. Hey, I've actually heard you speak on longevity, and you can see from your history, heard you talk about how important it is that you're in for the long race, not just for the sprint. And I look at all of our women here who are so precious and so beautiful, but they're carrying a lot in their lives. We've got kids who are doing uni right now. We've got beautiful women who are carrying large families and trying to be an amazing wife and having a career and businesswoman and all of these kind of things. So I guess my question is, how do you do it all? You've got a church of 45,000. You're speaking into lots of people's lives. You are, you're building, and you're doing things in the political arena as well. Yeah. How do you do it all and stay healthy and keep your soul sweet and keep yourself going and strong in God?
Keeping my soul sweet, something God's been talking to me a lot lately. Really speaking, because it's so easy to get bitter. In ministry, it's easy to get bitter. It's just, you go into so many circles, and you're just like, are we still talking about women in ministry? Like, is that still a thing? Can we just get over that and finally move on? And it's, and so, but God just, leading me, just keep on smiling. I'm here. It takes so much more strength to be sweet and to keep on believing that people are going to get better, to keep on believing it's going to get better, to keep on serving, keep on being faithful. And I want to talk about something that I do, and so often we don't talk enough about in church, is that one of the things that helps me to be in this crazy schedule and do all these things is I work out. And for so many years, I grew up in church that, in a church kind of idea that it was almost like sinful to work out, or just like, that's not that spiritual. Our bodies are the temple of God. And something that you mentioned that you wanted me to mention on, we were in Greece earlier this year with our pastors group when your pastors were there. And my husband and volunteered me to speak, which I love. He knows that I love. Last minute, nobody else wanted to do it. So I was like, Carla wants to do it, because he knows that I would. And so, of course, I had to pull a message out of thin air, which, not a problem. So we're sitting, in a hotel, just you could see from the top of our hotel the Parthenon, this great big temple of Athena. And it was more than 2,000 years old, but they take such care of it. It was torn down, and they carefully put every stone back, and people are cleaning it with Q-tips, and it's like, people do that for a temple of a fake goddess. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And exercise is not an option, it's necessary. Your lungs, your heart. It's not just about looking good. Your heart needs exercise. Your lungs need exercise. Women's more than men's bones need to weight lift, because as we get older, especially those of us that have nursed our children and have babies, our bones can get weak. But when you lift weights regularly, you recalcify your skeleton. How many women, or how many of our old grandmothers and great-grandmothers had a hip fall, broke a hip, had those brittle bones, and then died? They were never able to recover from that. You can prevent that by weightlifting regularly. So this isn't just something, that's super spiritual to go to the gym.
I'm feeling a little convicted now, girls. Just before Sade and Jen were talking about, they were about to give a gift away, and they were just saying, who's got a gym membership? So I stood up, and they're like, who hasn't been to the gym in 7 days, in the last 7 days? And I was standing. It was me. I do go, but
Yeah.
Pastor Janine's very into health and fitness. It's I love those thoughts. I'll ask you one more question. I think we probably have time for one more question. There's a
Here comes the cup.
there we go.
This is soul health.
Thank
This
you,
is soul care.
Sade.
Thank you. I asked
healthy.
for a. So it's like, I don't know what time in Lima, but
Pastor
I need
Carla has
this.
done so well with the difference of time zones.
Thank
Oh
you.
my goodness. But I've heard a story that is so impactful about how, and I'm not going to tell this right, so I'd love you to share it. And just to show women what's possible when you set our minds to it. There was a situation, I think this was a few years back, where you helped lead, I want to say,
I don't know what you're talking about. Go, oh, yes.
I'm right. Am I
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because I think, so to paint a bit of a picture, we live in a society where there's so many things coming at us that people are telling us what to think and dictating the way we should be doing things.
Yeah.
And your story, which was very inspiring, shows that actually if we want to put our minds to things, can make a difference and lead the way in change, which I loved hearing.
So some years ago, it's been like 7 years now. This is probably 2018, maybe. I don't know. Our president illegally went around Congress and made it a law as soon as he became president to force gender ideology in all public schools. And I don't normally get involved in politics, but I had 4 little kids just starting school. I'm like, I'm not gonna let them just teach that. And so I went to some meetings, and I wasn't even the leader. I took part of these meetings. I volunteered our church. Our church joined this massive march. And I told everyone, like, we're gonna do this because this matters, I hadn't been a part of a big march before, haven't since. And we marched, and of course the media had a field day. But even they had to admit the amount of people we had there. Our church is this massive church. We all went out and marched. So from our building and from 2 other points, we converged on this main square in our city. And so I was marching at the head of, I don't know, let's say 50,000 people. Wow. Even that media who was against us, they were like, there's probably a solid 1 million people there. So I don't even know if, 50 is a very conservative number, just massive armies behind me, and my mother-in-law also was on board. But I was the first one to go to the meeting zone. I was like, I think this is something we should be a part of. I didn't even go on stage, but we just backed up this thing of saying, as a city, as a citizen, I'm not okay with my kids having this gender ideology shoved down their throat. So it was one of the books that I read, because I had a friend of mine was a congressman, and he brought me the books. I read them myself. It wasn't something I just saw online. One of the books was, there's this boy who doesn't like soccer. He likes to sing and to dance, so he must be a little girl on the inside. And it's like, not every boy wants to play sports just because you like to, that's so wrong. Same with girls. This little girl plays sports, doesn't like dolls. She must be a boy on the inside. It's like, I loved playing sports when I was little. Imagine had I read that when I was 5. What damage that would have done to me. And so we're part of this march. Long story short, that, of course, the media, there's just this anger, that was unleashed against our church. And we're the big church in town. So just week after week, there was all these crazy stories made up about us because we were part of this march. And at the same time, we're fighting in the government. We were able to get the Minister of Education had to resign. And after a long legal battle, gender ideology was repealed from schools. The media ended up attacking us. They were so angry. That spirit, that twisting spirit was so angry. We had the craziest, wildest things written about us. One of the lies was we were under investigation for money laundering, which wasn't true, but they kept saying it so often. The government thought, let's open an investigation. We were under investigation. Luckily, Serge and I had just taken over, and the first thing my husband did, because he's super organized, was have someone come in and audit us and get everything in perfect order. So when the government came, we're like, oh, had you come a couple years ago, we might have been in trouble. But here's all the receipts, and every dollar's in its place. So it was, God is so good of letting it come at the moment that it came.
So inspiring.
But that was really painful. My kids had to go to school. One day I was dropping my kids off at school and I was being chased by a car with video cameras.
Wow.
And I was just trying to drop my kids off at school.
Wow. Crazy.
And I was trying to like hope I wouldn't run out of gas, that I would have to face these camera people. And the worst thing I think was my oldest son at the time, one day got surrounded by a bunch of kids. It's that 17 kids his age. And was like, hey, I heard your parents, are money laundering and they're in with the narcos or whatever. And so what do you say about that? And he had to defend himself as a child, against all these things. My kids are homeschooled now.
See why?
It's rough out there. But yeah, I mean, we definitely paid a price for that. But I look back now, because there's a point where I thought, is this worth it?
Yeah.
But now, the pandemic's over, schools are back in session, and we're one of the few countries that there's no gender ideology in schools.
Amazing. It's such a difference. So amazing.
Amazing. So we will probably have to finish there. But honestly, Pastor Carla has such gold. She actually has books that we're hoping one day will be translated into English.
I'm working on it. AI is going to help me.
I was going to
We've got
say, there'll be
translators here.
yes, any translators. There'll be so many of us who will be longing to read those. But can you join me in just honoring Pastor Carla? She has, again, traveled around the world to be with us. And Pastor Carla, you are a blessing to our church, and we very, very much are so grateful for you.